Once race car, always a race car, and we've got Subaru on hoist. But you're soon gonna get tired of that, so you might want that. Man, does time fly when you're having fun. Hello and welcome back to Stratified. Welcome back to another episode of our build series here for the WRX that's just behind me. So what are we doing? Well, time attack's about to start. And because time attack's about to start, we gotta prep the car. We took this car ice racing, it had snow tires on it. Those are off, but because we always wanna improve, we want to add a few things to the car to make it perform better in the series. So let's go over a couple of those things, get them installed, and get this car ready because we've only got 1 week to get out there on track and perform. If you've been watching the series, you know that this car had a failed transmission last time we were on track, actually on the last session of last year. So we, as you know, we've gone and put a full STI drivetrain underneath it. So that should be good, but I'm a little bit concerned that the diff is not a plated diff, it's a torsion, and that may hold us back. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But because the whole drivetrain is new, then we might as well concentrate on other things that are related to that and just get down to business, get the rust off, and see what we can do out there before we change anything about the drivetrain. So one of the things that, as you know, WRX is known for not being really awesome are the brakes. So we ran HP Plus pads in here all of last season, and these are actually the OEM Rotors. Because time attack is only 3 hot laps, and you're not hot lapping for 7, 10 laps at a time, they lasted. But as you can see here, if we go around to the front, you can see that the rotors are getting those tiny cracks in them. So it's time to do something about the brakes. And the HP Plus pads, plus our little cooling mod here to bring in more air to the rotor, plus opening up the heat shield in here really helped. But what's the next level? And that next level actually happens to be OEM. When these rotors and these calipers came out first for the STI 2018 Plus, these were extremely expensive. So they're the 6 pots in the front and then the 2 pots in the rear. And then the prices dropped, and it just made sense to upgrade to a set. Now these are off eBay, actually a junkyard car, and unfortunately, there are some scratches and some dents, mostly due to shipping. Not really dents, but just scratches of the paint. However, the paint does turn brown on these things when you heat them up on track. So, YOLO, let's just go with it. Let's install them. I'm gonna use the same pads for consistency. So I'm gonna use the HP Plus pads. I have a set already, and we'll see how we do before we upgrade anything more. Of course, RBF 600 fluid. So here's the passenger side front caliper. That's what it looks like. Cleaned it up a little bit. Like I said, there's some chips here and there, but it's going on a track car, so not a big deal. In order for you to pull out the pads, this is just like doing a brake pad change. So you got to pull out these 2 pins, a small punch, and this punch actually goes right into there. So you got enough clearance, and the hammer, I just tapped that out. Then you got your clip here, and then you pull out the pads. Now these pads, they seem like they have a good amount of life still in them, but because I really don't know what they are, they have a red backing. Maybe some of you guys know what these are. EBC Reds, something like that. Anyways, we'll be putting the HP Plus pads since it's all apart. This is also a good time to inspect that the seals on this caliper are still good, and they are. There's the 3 pistons, and there's obviously 3 pistons on the other side. And then to make just the pad installation easier, because this is not connected to a brake system here, is you want to push all these in with your hand. It'll go in just fine, but be mindful that this is going to release some brake fluid if it's not brand new. So there it is, all apart. Now we're just going to drop in pads, get all the rest of these all cleaned up and put new pads in them, and then we'll start taking apart the parts that are on the car, right here. Yeah, there you go, Mr. Gimbal. So we're gonna start taking that apart and dropping these in. So the rear is very much like the fronts on this car, on these STI Brembos. So you've got your 2 pins, your pads on either side, and this is the retaining clip, which keeps the pads in place and prevents some of the knockback. This caliper will also, we have to push in this piston, check that everything is looking good. Obviously cosmetically it's not 100%, but like I said, not a big deal. But the other thing that you want to do is you want to clean up these pins before you reinsert them with new pads, and just apply a little bit of this grease here that comes with most brake pads. These are Hawks, so just make sure that there's just a little bit of lubrication in there. You don't need to lubricate it as much as you do a sliding caliper, because that does a lot more sliding than this, but just a little bit of lubrication is good. With the calipers all prepped up in here, they're nice and loaded with the pads, it's time for us to move on to disassembling the rest of the brake system. So here, to disassemble the brake system, we need to obviously pull off the calipers and the rotors. So we're going to be pulling this off, then we're going to be pulling the rotors. The brake shield is already modified, so it should be fine with just running the larger rotors in here. Of course, going to weight them to see if we're saving any weight in here. And then we're going to put calipers, put rotors, the brake line, we're going to obviously disconnect and reconnect the new brake line, and that's about it. So in the back it gets, the heat shields are not modified, so we're going to be modifying those and do the same thing. This is a really straightforward swap. Probably the biggest pain in the butt with all this is going to be bleeding the system, because there's a lot of pistons to bleed. The whole thing is going to be full of air, so we're gonna have a good time with that. But let's get on to mounting these up. So before we get our calipers and rotors on here, one thing that I want to do is put in these ARP extended studs. So the reason for this is because with the Enki wheels that were NTO3s and as well as the RPF1s, the caliper sticks out so much that it's actually going to impact the spokes. So we're going to have to run a small spacer up here. That's fine. The car actually does have a slightly narrower track in front, so widening in front only increases your grip in the front, so I'm not too worried about that. But to put these studs in here, we need to knock out these guys and pull these back in. So at first, you're inclined to try a small hammer. You can get an old wheel nut here and just kind of put it onto the stud there. You can almost bottom this out at the very bottom, but gives you a nicer surface to hammer on. But you're soon gonna get tired of that, so you might want that. Rinse and repeat. These OEM nuts are good for something. So about this time, you're probably sick and tired of me hammering things out. So we can skip right to the inserting of the new ones. So the way you want to pull these through is you can use a stack of washers, or you can get yourself from Amazon one of these tools that has a bearing on the back of it. So what this will do is that it'll allow you to pull the stud through with an open-ended nut such as this, and it'll be much easier. So once you set the stud in here, then you put this on, you can start threading this guy on. Sometimes it offers a bit of resistance, but most of the time it's okay, especially if you've got it on the first time. So when you got resistance like this, you can either continue hurting your hand, or you hammer it a bit in the back, or back it out. Nothing is straightforward. There you go. You can feel that start to grip. Rinse and repeat 5 times per wheel. Jumping into the rear of the car, so this car, as you all know, uses drums for the parking brake, and partly because of that, the rotor is quite thick in the center section. There's a difference between the OEM WRX rotor and the STI. This is also an OEM rotor. So this is acting as the shoe surface for the parking brake. It's the same on both rotors, which makes it nice and convenient. One thing that you want to do is you want to use a bolt to push the rotor away from the hub, because often it's going to be seized on there. And then the next thing that you're going to need to address is the fact that this heat shield, it is actually going to be in the way, and it's going to make contact with the larger diameter rotor. So just a pair of these tin snips, and we'll get to work on that, and we'll just take off this upper part of the shield here and make a room for the larger rotor. A little bit of cleaning up with the snips there, and if you follow the line that's already present on this shield, then you can get a really nice kind of opened up shield there. And then of course use a file and just take out any sort of the burrs that you've got on there. And now, of course, the larger rotor will fit. If I can put it on the hub. Ha! There you go. Fit with no clearance issues in the back here. So you can see there's plenty of room. And now we can just do the other side, mount the calipers, hook the lines up, and it's bleeding time. So one little gotcha with this brake job, and really any job where you have to undo lines, is that lines are very soft and it's really easy to strip, and when you do, it turns this job into a much larger job, which nobody wants. So most of us will have a open end wrench like this to try and undo a line. The box end wrench is the way to do it, but in the case that you only have this and you want to get it done, then you can use this wrench, but you just have to be careful. So it's going to go obviously over here to get it undone. I use the torch, such as this one. I heated up the nut. Don't get the cherry hard or anything like that, but just get enough heat in there so that you can actually loosen it up without stripping it. So at this point, everything's mounted up, and one of the more annoying parts is bleeding the system. So you want to get all the air out of the system that you've introduced by removing the brake lines and putting in the fresh calipers. These calipers have two bleeders. One is on the inside, one on the outside. I start with the passenger far side, so furthest from the master cylinder, and work my way around the car. This would be the second to last one, and then the last one would be the front. So the front driver. So here, what you want to do is you can use a power bleeder with pressure at the reservoir. I like the one person bleeder here because you can do it on your own, and basically you're just going to pump the brakes. This has a check valve in it. It's going to fill up with fluid, and then you dump it out. You put fresh fluid, and you're going to have to do a round of probably about 3 or 4 times on these calipers to really get them nice and firm. So it's going to take a little while. Be patient and just walk your way around the car and continuously bleed turn on the car and until the brakes feel properly firm and you know you've got fresh fluid in there. So you can see that fluid's filling up the reservoir there, and this is pretty much already bled. So we got one more pump, and that's it. And then dump it out and move on. Too many holes. Time attack tomorrow. So the brakes are all bedded in. They're looking nice and dirty, and that really doesn't matter because we're really looking for performance here, and the performance is really a huge step up from the two piston stuff in the front of the WRX that came stock. I have to really adjust my heel toe because they're just so grabby, so I'm very curious to see how that translates into stopping distances and at which point, which marker I'm going to start applying the brakes. I needed to run those extended studs, and because we're just with 5mm spacer, we're super close to where the caliper comes to this rim, the NT03, but they look good, they fit well. 5mm more track width up front actually helps the front end grip. Looking forward to it. We did add weight with this full STI drivetrain swap, and I have a feeling I'm going to miss that plated differential in the rear, so I'm gonna have to probably, another upgrade is gonna be a plated diff, but I wanted to get some track time, same tires as last year, which they're pretty worn out, but we'll see what we do out there at VIMC. Hello and welcome. We're out of the track. We got our official numbers on the side, which makes us super official. So initially it wasn't going to be a lot of cars in our class, but actually there are quite a few, which makes me a little concerned about these old last season tires. But anyways, we'll get that baseline. So we've got a variety here. We've got everything from Porsches. We've got a K's Focus ST, which is a car that we tuned. He's first time at this track. He's changing out his track tires. So a bunch of Subarus, a bunch of everything, and yeah, looking forward to putting in some laps. Nice cool day, and seeing how we do. So we're back from the track, back with the Fasty here, and how did it do? Well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. So first of all, beat our personal best time from before, but I'm not entirely sure that it's all car there. So started out pretty soft. It was the first session of the year, and by the time we ended the day, we're ahead of where we were last year. The brakes, an awesome upgrade. However, just as I suspected, there are some definite traction problems with this car when you are going up a hill on a sharp corner especially. I could not believe the fact that I was actually spinning tires. I plated the DCCD. I could not get the car to put the power down like my old WRX did. And on the old WRX, the big difference was that RS, Cusco RS 1.5 way rear limited sub diff. So that's definitely next in the cards for this car. I think it's really going to transform it. I was talking to a 2005 owner who was there, and they had a plated differential, a clutch type plated differential in that car early on. These are all Torsons in the 2018s. So up next, Cusco RS install and the bid to go faster.